Tēnā koutou katoa, haere mai ki tēnei hui, ki te mana whenua rangitāne, he mihi nui. Tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa. Very warm welcome to you all to our Environmental Sustainability Committee meeting of Wednesday, the 18th of May. Joined here in the front by Sarah Claridge, our administrator, our advisor Hannah White, busy in the chamber, and David Murphy, our chief planning officer. And note the other officers and executive officers in attendance. We'll start off with the usual housekeeping before moving into the agenda proper. Firstly, to notify you that this meeting is being recorded and also being live streamed on the Council's YouTube channel. Would draw your attention to the health and safety matters which are explained on the screen in front of us, including fire and emergency procedures, which involves, on the sounding of an alarm, moving to the nearest fire exit and evacuating to the assembly area, which is the clock tower in Te Marae o Henia the Square. Other health and safety matters: that smoking is prohibited, a defibrillator is located front of house on the ground floor, and would ask that any near misses or incidents be reported to our committee administrators. While we are in the COVID protection framework at the orange setting, we are asking everyone to continue to follow public hygiene measures. For those participating online, welcome. Please do endeavor to keep your cameras on and microphones muted unless addressing the meeting. There is one caveat to that, which is that the building is experiencing some bandwidth issues, so we may have some connectivity challenges this morning, but please bear with us as we work through those. Councillors that are here in the room, I'm told that your devices can be used for queuing, but we will be taking the votes on the hands today rather than through the devices, given the number of councillors online. If you do have any amendments or recommendations, alternative recommendations, please send those through to the committee administrator in the first instance on email or through the chat function if you're attending online. And for those who are in the chamber who will be speaking, please, if for some reason I fail to introduce you, please do provide your name before speaking, and please do use a microphone so that we can pick that up for those who are attending online. Today we have attending online Councillors Johnson, Findlay, Beatty, Bowen, Michelad. And again, to those of you online, noting that we do have some bandwidth issues that we're currently trying to resolve.
Mr. Chair, it's Councillor Dennison here. I'm also attending online this morning. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Dennison, coming through loud and clear. Moving to the agenda, the first item is apologies, and we'll just wait for a moment for the screen to transition to that. We have before us that the committee resolves that the apologies be received from Councillors Hopeta for late arrival and Councillor Beatty for early departure. Are there any other apologies? There being none, I'll look to move that. Seconded by Councillor Butt. And would ask for a vote again on the hands. All those in favor? Any opposed? That's unanimous. I've not had any notification of additional items. Are there any declarations of interest in relation to today's agenda? Seeing none, I've not been notified of any public comment. I don't see any members of the public present in the room, so we can assume that we are through that. Which moves us to the first substantive item on the agenda, which is the Sustainability Review 2022. This is item 5, page 7, and I'll ask Olivia Wicks, our communications manager, to present to us on this. Welcome, Olivia.
Good morning. Yes, I'm really excited to show you this year's sustainability review. This is what it looks like when it's actually printed. I know that in your agenda it doesn't look quite so beautiful. If you want to see a copy, we've got a few spheres upstairs. And I have got a presentation this morning, which we'll try and bring up. Thank you. Do you want to go on to the first page? So in our sustainability review, this is the second one we've done. The first one was completed and published in December 2020. It's supposed to be a 2-yearly report. The first one was delayed slightly due to the March lockdowns, the first lockdowns we had. I wanted to touch on COVID-19. Obviously, some of our habits and the way we live and things have changed over the last couple of years, and it doesn't really feature so much in this, but the impacts of what that means long term is something that we just don't know yet. So in terms of that data, that's going to take us a good few years to see what those long-term shifts in terms of our consumer behaviour, in terms of using, I guess, more disposable items for our hygiene or in our health, but also what things like hybrid working and things like that could also mean for some of the sectors. In this edition, we have done some more storytelling kind of pieces in this publication than we did in the last one. And just to summarise, the point of this sustainability review is to highlight some of the great work that our organisation is doing in this space, but also to put a spotlight on some of the great organisations in our city that are doing some pretty neat stuff as well. Cool. So the sustainability review is broken down. It starts off with an address from the Mayor, an overview of our eco-city strategy. It outlines our partnership with rangitane and how they particularly feed into this important space. We have kept with the 7 sections from the first review, so carbon, energy, transport, water, biodiversity, urban design and resource recovery. And I just wanted to touch on the fact that, I guess, just to remind everyone that this report isn't a report on data or to benchmark or to compare year to year. We have a bit of a problem when it comes to data and the fact that every sector collects data in different ways and different time frames from different organisations sometimes. So I would just hazard that don't try and look at the data from this one and last one and use that as a comparative exercise. This is I guess a real spotlight on what we've done over the last 18 months and that as a standalone. The next steps are we are going to release the report, we are going to profile some of the stats, some of the information, some of the stories through media, through social media, through some of our other work, through things like Palmy Proud. It will be published and shared with our stakeholders and those that feature in it. They'll be sent a link if they want electronic versions or if they request hard copy versions. We're happy to do that as well. And then the team's going to, because this is the second time we've done this report, it's a good opportunity to look and go, is it doing what we all want it to be? What should it be? How often should it be? Some of those kind of things. And then we'll report back to this committee. That's pretty much it from me. I guess our team wrote it, but obviously couldn't do it without the support of all of these teams. So I asked them to come along and help me in case you had any questions today.
Excellent. Thank you for that overview, Olivia, and we'll ask if there's any questions. Councillor Johnson.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Thanks, Liv, for the report, and it made some good reading. I've got a question about the small paragraph on page 20 about the carbon fund, the low carbon fund. I guess my first question is, was there more that we could have written there? It just seems that for a large fund that we've recently invested, that's clearly providing monetary savings as well as carbon savings, that it hasn't really got much of a highlight in the report.
I might just ask Adam if he could come up and help me with that answer.
Thank you.
Tēnā koe, Mr Chair, tēnā koutou councillors, committee members. Adam Jarvis, Senior Climate Change Advisor. To your question, the Low Carbon Fund has only recently been established, so we're still in the process of rolling it out. We're anticipating, per our previous guidance, to be giving you a report on those activities to the September Environmental Sustainability Committee, where we can talk in a lot greater detail about what we've achieved, where we're going, moving forward and so forth, but we're really still right in the middle of it, so kind of premature to talk about it in a retrospective report like this one at this stage in terms of the actual what's being delivered.
Okay, so it's just that it's a bit too soon and we could perhaps expect to see a bit more highlighting in the next report. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, that's what sums it up.
Okay, thank you. And then my other question is just about how we will be transmitting this information to our community. And, you know, I note, Liv, that you've said that you're going to do some more storytelling and use social media and media releases and so on. But I still feel that many people in the community wouldn't even be aware that we published this report, let alone what's in it. And I wonder if there's anything else in addition to what you've got planned that we could, you know, be involved with to publicise what is essentially a lot of really good work in the environmental space.
Yeah, I think I guess a report like this is something that we can pull out over the next 2 years at various places and opportunities. I guess the report itself will go out to, as I said, the stakeholders in this, but also, you know, the teams that are in this and all of their stakeholders. So it will get some quite widespread in that space. It will be available in our libraries and our customer service centres, things like that. I guess also if we're having drop-in sessions that are potentially related to any of the topics that are featured in here, that's an opportunity also to showcase the information more as well.
So you don't think there's anything more we could be doing then to publicise it further? Is that what you're saying?
I think that what we have planned will give a pretty good saturation of our community in terms of informing them some of the key elements of this review.
Okay, thank you. I'll leave it there, Mr Chair.
The Mayor.
Thank you, Mr Chair. Thanks, Liv. Really, I think it's great, and as I can see you're excited by it, so and the great work that the staff do. Pretty well along the same lines as Councillor Johnson. Have we thought, I mean, I get a lot of inquiries to my office, mate, from a lot of youth and schools, and sometimes they're taking a view that we're doing nothing, and it's because there's a bit of media beat up and political, you know, misinformation at times too. So is it worth going to the schools and showing them what we're doing?
I think this is the kind of information we can definitely give to the schools. I guess I would hazard it that it's probably something that would be more interesting for teachers, whereas young people are probably more likely to get their information from social media and, you know, short snippets of information that we tell creatively rather than reading a 60-page.
Yeah, but there's lots of pictures in there too, so I mean, I'm sure it would engage as well. So we could do that?
Yeah, that's easy. We have good relationships with the schools.
If my office could give you the principles and that to go to, yeah.
Easy one, cool.
And also, I could see where, again, Councillor Johnson was talking about what more can we do for the community. Could we not have an evening with our our key partners, the Rangitāne, and Environment Network Manawatu, Green Corridors, to in a couple of pieces out of this snippets that could be perhaps case studies. I mean, I get that you're going to push it out through the social means, and that's great. But sometimes just having a real launch, if you want to say, with our partners could be a way of giving it some more profile, because it's really, there's some, I mean, we haven't told all the stories, but there's some great stuff in there.
Yeah, I think that's definitely an opportunity we could look at, yeah.
Oh, thank you. Thanks, Mr. Chair.
Councillor Butt.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Liv and team, for this wonderful report. And I'm sure many of the organizations and groups will be looking for guidance from this report. On page 24 and 25, it says that, and it is very good to see that we have reduced about 31% carbon emissions only in terms of electricity usage. But it doesn't say how we got there, how we reduced this. It only says that we have reduced this much. I think if you could describe a little bit that how we were able to do this, it will be a guidance for the other organizations as well. Or, I mean, is there any explanation of this process?
I guess I might call on Adam again to help me out on that one. We can definitely add more information to the report before it gets published, so that is an easy thing, but I'll let Adam explain. What is the best way of explaining how we managed to lower our emissions as an organisation?
I'm very sorry, Councillor. Can I just ask you to repeat your question? I was unfortunately distracted while you asked it, and I
Sure.
think I'm probably missing some of the
Yes.
nuance.
And this report says, and I'm very happy to read that in the last 5 years, we have reduced about 31% of carbon emissions only in terms of electricity usage. I just wanted to know, what did we do to reduce this electricity usage? Did we started turning off lights, or we?
Sure. Right, okay, I understand. I think, so there's still room to put some additional detail?
Yeah, we can still add some.
Yeah, so we can certainly put some additional detail into the report to that, on that matter. We are anticipating to deliver an inventory of the citywide emissions later today to this, so we can go into some detail about some of the changes there. And then we present an annual report in September regarding this organisational emissions, which we can dive into some greater detail there as well. At a high level, I would say that the key changes that have been made regarding electricity use for the organisation over the last half decade or so would be things like the upgrade of the city's street lights to LEDs, which reduced emissions from those by some 250 odd tonnes per annum. There's been some major improvements made in terms of electricity efficiency at the Lido, which, given that it's one of our biggest energy users as a heated pool, has been some very significant gains there. There's been process improvements made at the wastewater treatment plant in terms of the cogeneration facility there, which means that we've been able to reduce the amount of electricity required in order to operate the plant. So those would be sort of, I guess, some of the large ones over the last few years. But there's also been ongoing work in terms of building renewals and so forth to move to LED lights, such as in this chamber, and in a wide range of kind of smaller scale work that collectively adds up to some significant change.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Councillor Dingwall.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for this report and this review. My question is very similar to Councillor Johnson's and the Mayor's. I was just wondering, in terms of our last sustainability review, do we have data around, I guess, the reach of that and the different methods and how many people actually ended up having access to that, both the physical copies and the online copies, and how we're measuring this in comparison to that?
I think the last one was printed and went out to organisations, but it wasn't very highly publicised, and I think that's partly because it went out in December, so obviously everyone's focused on Christmas and school holidays and doing other things. The fact that we're mid-year is obviously an advantage. I think while the report, I guess as an organisation, is important, where the community gets interested in is the really specific examples. So that's where we're likely to get their interest. And, you know, things like there's a story in there about the energy efficiency of the water plants, and everyone that's read that has gone, oh, wow, that's so cool. You know, like that's the kind of thing that is going to get them to pick up and read the document. So I guess from our perspective, that's how we got to try and bring them in. I think we know that there were very few downloads on our website, but we know that the stakeholders and people like the Mayor and stuff did use this document quite widely when people were coming in and talking. So I think we will probably see a good increase in people reading it and consuming it based on this edition. And that's one of the reasons why we did more storytelling type things as well.
Cool. So I guess to summarise, you do have records of sort of how many people got it last time, and we are tracking how many people will end up seeing it this time around.
Yeah, we can definitely look at the print runs and website clicks and things like that. I guess one of the things that, like easy metrics that we've got these days are like social media metrics and how many people are clicking through based on something and things like that. Media interviews, all of those kind of things are easy measurables for us to report back on when we do our next one as to how successful this was and how widely it was consumed.
Excellent. Cool. Thank you.
No more questions in the queue, just a couple for me, Olivia. The first one, is this really a 2022 review, or is it more of a 2021 review with a 2022 release date? And the reason that I'm asking that is kind of related to Councillor Johnson's question, that there's some things that are going to happen in 2022, obviously, that haven't yet. But then haven't been captured in a report that on the face of it says it's a 2022 report.
It's interesting you say that because that was one of the discussions we had as well. I guess the majority of this information is 2021, but it does feature some things from 2022, for example, things like the tyre recycling initiative. So there are some 2022 additions in there. I guess one of the problems with having an environment report that comes up every 2 years is that it is quite hard to narrow that time frame down. So by the time we started working on this and pulling information at the beginning of the year. So really you're looking at 18 months worth of information to pull a document like this together. We can easily change the date on it if that's something you guys want to do to make it 2021 or, you know, something like that.
Thank you. The second question that I had was really just around, you mentioned the data gaps and sort of the challenges of getting some kind of relevant and up-to-date information in some of the key areas. In your view, from a comms point of view, is that data gap situation getting better over time or getting worse over time?
I think it's from a comms perspective, it is so hard. Every sector does it completely differently. You know, for example, resource recovery, if they do the big waste audit every 5 years, that would be a different 5 years to what the census has done. Or sometimes the transport information would be come from government in certain places and then other things from us. So I guess we don't have, and I guess others in the team can probably help with the data explanation, but I guess we don't have, by having such a regular report, we don't have a good catchment where we can go back and review based on in the last 5 years or in the last certain period. The short time frame we have does have some big issues in terms of data. if there was a desire to make this more of a data report or a more data comparison, I think that is a big, problem for us in how we capture and use our own data and other organisations' data.
Thank you. Final question. You speak about having an assessment of where we're at after this second review. Can you share with us what your view is about what role elected members would have in informing that assessment and navigating forward with this?
Yeah, definitely. I think the first step, is to pull everyone who was involved in this report together and I guess do a bit of a lessons learned, so what worked well, what didn't work well, were there things that we were missing. We're really open to hearing your feedback. You obviously are the key ambassadors for the report. So if you have thoughts and things, please, get in touch, send your feedback in to Donna, and obviously we'll report back to the committee once we've had that session as well.
Great, thank you. There's no further questions in the queue, so thank you for your presentation and answering the questions from the committee. The committee members, I draw your attention to the screen where we have the recommendation in front of us that the committee resolves to receive the Sustainability Review 2022. Is there somebody that would like to move that recommendation? The Deputy Mayor, and seconded by the Mayor. And we'll open that up for comment. The Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Look, I have great pleasure in seconding this motion and report. Thanks again to Liv and the team, and actually the entire council staff, and because it is a joint effort here. It is a place and time, and I sense some of the questions around has it got data, and I think we're maturing a bit in this space. We've modelled this on what has happened in some other leading organisations, both commercially and organisation and council. And, it may in time have some data and possibly even an annual report, because it is quite hard doing this on a 18-month, 2-year basis. But there's some really good stories here of what we've done to achieve some of our eco-city goals. Our own energy generation. A lot of Palmerstonians, let alone outsiders, would know that we actually generate a lot of our own power, whether it be hydro or gas, and even solar. So the efficiency that we've done, and I think it was great to see Adam virtually off the cuff tell us quite clearly where some of our efficiencies were just in electricity. But our LED lighting, I'm just reading a few here, and the numerous planting and our biodiversity programs. We invest heavily as a council around eco-design. We have a service there that's free for our residents. Urban design, we again invest heavily in that, and that's starting to make some real positive impacts on our city. But our partners, the Ruahine Kiwi project, even Soho in the public housing, the urban design program there, the plastic recycling with Aotearoa New Zealand Made business. Didn't even really know the extent of how big that organisation was. The tyre recycling, and numerous projects with partners, Rangatana especially, with urban eels, the water monitoring, amongst others. So it's a really important story that we need to get out, and I would urge the officers to have a look at some of our youth, our younger people, who often don't get the full story, and it would be nice for them to somehow feed into this, maybe in a future report as well. But well done, and I think it really does show quite a shift from this organisation, certainly since I've been at the table. Thank you.
Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to echo the comments of positivity around the sustainability review. I think it's a really exciting opportunity to tell the stories of what we've achieved over the last few years, but actually also highlight some of the work we've got in progress. particularly around our eco-city goals. And I think that's really important, especially the switch to storytelling, to bring people with us. The examples given, particularly around the energy or the electricity gains that we've made, I think they really also close the loop on some of the big projects that we've been going through. You know, LED lighting as an example. I remember when that first came through the chamber, it had obviously quite a significant price tag on it, but actually, you know, it was pitched to say this would really make a dent and it would have some good success. Actually, the example of the emissions that it has reduced is closing the loop on that story. And so I think sometimes these pieces of work, obviously, they take a few years, but also we pitch at the beginning as to why we want to, you know, invest in a particular area, but we don't always come back and kind of finish that off and say, look, this is actually why we invested in this. So the stories that are coming through here, the information that's coming through is really, it's really exciting. It is showing that we are, you know, on a good pathway. There is still work to be done. This certainly isn't even kind of what we've got coming up isn't going to be the answer for us, but yeah, we're heading in a good direction. And I think the opportunity to particularly use social media in terms of the short stories and snippets of information is really cool. It'll be really exciting to see this intertwined into just our normal comms that we have going out, because there's lots of examples across the organisation of where we're doing well in the sustainability space. So, yeah, really positive report to come through.
We'll move online now to hear from Councillor Johnson.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. And yes, I mean, I'm going to echo other people's comments that this is a fantastic report. And I think it's a definite step up from the first one in terms of bringing some of the stories to life. And I think, you know, Liv talked about the storytelling. That's very important to try and capture people's attention. There's a lot of success in the sustainability space in council, and I would like us to champion it more, to go out and actually be telling the stories, you know, far and wide. And I think, unfortunately, a lot of people just don't realise what we're doing. So, for example, I had someone come to me the other day and say, oh, has council ever thought about putting solar panels on the roof of your building? Now, I think there's been solar panels on the roof of the council building for about 20 years. But, you know, that person just wasn't aware that we were doing it. And there are things in this report, you know, as the mayor's commented, that I'm sure people don't even know we're doing. You know, do people know that we're selling electricity to the national grid and making money out of it? I doubt that. You know, and sometimes people will come up with things that they want us to be doing, thinking that we're not doing those things, where in fact, when you look at the report, lots of these things like planting fruit trees in parks, like leaving wildflowers to grow instead of mowing them, you know, they're the sorts of things that are already being done, but we're not somehow achieving, I don't know, the critical mass of storytelling and getting the word out to people. So I'd really encourage the comms team to make the most of these, you know, successes across so many different areas of council. And, you know, let's actually champion the success that we're having. This is one of our 4 main goals around being an eco-city. And this report, I think, is a critical piece of communication between what happens sort of behind closed doors, often in council, or, you know, that happens on sites that public don't have access to, like the wastewater plant and up the dam. It's getting those stories and information and pictures out so that people know what we're doing, and people are aware that we're making good progress in this space. So I'm really pleased with the report. I think it's great, and I'm really even more pleased with the progress that we're making in terms of environmental sustainability. But I would like to see a much more outward-facing and continuous storytelling, so that our community actually knows what's happening. Thanks.
Councillor Bowen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. A lot of what I'd want to say, Councillor Johnson has already traversed, so I won't repeat that. But I will. I do want to echo strongly that call to ongoing communications, and this was brought home to me in the submissions we've been hearing over the last few weeks, where members of the community come to us to ask us to work in a particular way, not knowing that we're already doing that. And it's very easy in our bubble of council staff, of elected members, to know what's going on, to assume that that knowledge is well understood by our stakeholders and our community. And the fact is quite the opposite, that unless we're regularly telling them, they don't know. And unless we're using diverse channels to get those messages out, then they don't know. And our assumption should be that people don't know what council is doing. And this is a great opportunity to share, as others have described it, what is truly a good news story for council, but it's not a one-off every 2 years good news story. This should be a permanent part of how we communicate how council is achieving across its strategic goals. And there are good news stories here that would play well, I think, out into our own media, if not traditional media. Thank you.
Just to wrap up, a few comments from the chair. I certainly echo and endorse everything that's been said so far. There's a huge amount of work that's gone into this, and thank you to the comms team and to the wider council team. This is hundreds of people leaning into creating good news stories around sustainability as an organization, and working with the community and partners in the community as well. And it really comes across strongly and is a real credit to the organization what's been presented here. So first and foremost, it is a thank you. This is information that everyone in the city should be well aware of and should be well proud of in terms of the journey that we are on and the needs and accountabilities to the community around sustainability into the future. The framing here in this report is really positive, and I think that's entirely appropriate. I think, though, that can lead to people identifying the challenges more through reading in between the lines rather than actually specifically articulating more clearly some of the challenges that we face. And I think that we could strengthen our communications in this space by also really being crystal clear with our community about the challenges that we're facing and how the community can be engaged in helping us meet those challenges as well. But look, this report is, and the review itself is absolutely excellent, builds very well on the 2020 edition. I, like others, learned some new facts along the way, which was great. And I was really pleased with the extent to which it highlights the community partnerships with Rangitane, and what we are delivering side by side, working with our community in that regard. I really do look forward, Olivia, to the assessment and refresh in terms of where we go, and I hope that we'll have a lot of elected member input into that. But overall, thanks again. It's really, really good to see this getting out into the community, and we'll look forward to seeing efforts made to really maximize the reach of this report and the information therein. Certainly endorse the commentary and line of questioning from the mayor around getting a launch here that could actually help us really elevate this in the community's consciousness. Would be really, really helpful. With that, we will move to the vote, and again, we are on the hands. All those in favor? That is unanimous. Thank you. We'll move now to item 6 on the agenda, which is the first of 2 presentations, and welcome Dave Elder. Thank you, Dave, for traveling to be here with us today in Palmerston North. We're very much looking forward to hearing what you have to share with us around Future Post and your plans and opportunities that you see for this community. Go ahead and settle in there.
Thank you, and a special thank you to Sarah for getting me all organised. Appreciate that.
Very warm welcome. You've got 10 minutes, as you know, to share with us, and we're looking forward very much to hearing what you have to say, and we'll follow that up with with any questions. Thank you again, Mr. Elder. I'm looking forward to hearing from you.
Great, thank you. I'll put the presentation up, hopefully.
It will come just in a moment. There we are.
I better go back one by the looks of it. Yep. So very quickly, just going through it, a little bit of background on the business. The business was started by a farmer fencer, Jerome Winslick, who's still the major shareholder in the business. He was getting frustrated, I guess, around a couple of things. Basically, first of all, that people were landfilling on their farms and dumping plastic in there. And secondly, that he was not happy always with the quality of the timber fencing that he was doing. So he decided to go on a bit of a mission and actually use the products out of the landfill on farms, the plastics, to actually manufacture posts. So travelled all around the world, looked at what was available and realised none of that would have suited him if he was a New Zealand fencer. And then come up with the design of his own technology to actually come up with a fence post that equaled the treated timber posts that are in the market. So that's the background of how the business began. Basically, all I wanted to talk to about today was really the fact that we're coming into the Manawatu region. We'll be here early in 2023. And part of the reason for that is the fact that our business has grown significantly. We're based in Waiuku in South Auckland, but supply to the South Island and everywhere else, so we're not very comfortable with two factors around that. First of all, our environmental footprint's not terrific at the moment because we're transporting our product quite a long way. But also, secondly, there's quite a cost in the transport to get to the South Island. And the fact that the South Island has been such a large market for us has actually meant that we haven't been able to sell in the way that we would have into the middle million of New Zealand. And so we have significant opportunity to sell in the middle million. And it made sense for us that one of our next plants should actually be in the Lower North Island. And we chose the Manawatu because of the great distribution opportunities from the Manawatu area, both for product in and product out. So what we think is important is this, and that is for us to secure long-term outcomes for recyclable products. Basically, in most cases in New Zealand's history around recyclables, it's been a commodity that's been traded depending on where the market is, but that hasn't always created any sustainability or longevity, as we've seen with the China sword coming in bits and pieces, and now the changes in the Basel Convention, which are limiting the opportunities to send products overseas. So we want to make sure that when councils and businesses make decisions around starting up recycling and diverting from landfill, that there's always going to be a long-term home for that, and it always is a long time, but we consider always to be about the length of contract. So if someone's going to put a contract out for collection for 12 or 20 years, there should be 12 or 20 years of known market at a known rate around that. We think that's something that's important. Consistency in the things that are being offered and the products that are being diverted from landfill around recycling. We've all seen right around New Zealand and a lot of places in the world where 1s to 7s in plastics were collected, and then all of a sudden it got changed and people could only take a 1 or 2 or 1 or 5. So we want to make sure that when people commit that they're able to do that. Developing a value chain that actually ensures that it's not just a commodity sold on the market, but it actually adds additional value to the products that are recycled. We don't just manufacture our products, but in actual fact, we're a full product stewardship company. So any product we sell, we actually take back at the end of its life, and we make sure that there's a full value chain in that. Cost-effective outcomes to ensure that the outcomes are not affected by international commodity markets. We actually want the product for manufacturing, so we can give, rather than monthly values on product, we can give annual values on product because we know what we're selling into the market. We have orders within our business that are 18 months ahead, so we can work our business around that. And the ability to deliver medium and long-term recycling budgets with certainty for councils and for businesses. One of the great issues that people have faced both in commercial business and in council is when you're budgeting for an income from a material, it's not actually seen as a liability, it's actually seen as a potential value chain, and then all of a sudden the value falls out of the market and actually becomes a liability, so we think that that's important as well. Rightio, so what are the issues? Changes in the marketplace. constantly almost now, outside of council's control, and I'm talking particularly around the council stuff here, for recyclables that can't be collected. So these are things that are in there and then aren't in there. We've changed our range of products quite significantly. We started off by being able to take one plastic. We're now able to take all plastics apart from PVCs and PETs, and we've almost got the solution for PETs as well. So we've been able to extend that considerably. Consistent commodity pricing, as I've talked about. Assurances that the commodities collected for recycling are in fact recycled, so that there is a chain around that. Anything that comes to us, you can actually see what happens to it. We manufacture it, we do it. We actually have started having companies come to us around brand protection, because they know that when their product comes to us, it actually does get manufactured and doesn't go anywhere that it can be seen. And the ability to develop a value chain for councils from the commodities collected. And what I mean by that is we're working with some councils at the moment where literally we have a full circular economy with them around the recyclables, where they're giving us recyclables, we're supplying back materials to the council that they would normally have bought from a virgin material, and we're actually able to do that within their current value chain and cost chain within the business. So those things have been successful for us. What are the opportunities to ensure long-term sustainability in the markets, as I've said? Know the minimum commodity values that you're putting into your budgeting and bits and pieces around that. It won't change with us, so you're not going to get those fluctuations that are there. Assurances that the commodities collected for recycling are manufactured and that there's a real value chain around that. And in actual fact, you're stopping the cycle of more plastic coming in, and the fact that we're a full product stewardship business. So when we put it out, we take it back and it goes back through again. So it actually certainly reduces by type and value. And that is that, again, we've got councils and businesses that are working with us now. And I'll give the example of Christchurch International Airport. They're building a solar farm down there. They're going to give us their plastics out of the Christchurch Council, and we're going to give them back as many of the structures as we can for the solar plant rather than actually bringing another product. The solar plant has a life of 15 to 25 years. At the end of the 15 to 25 years, we'll take all the product back. So the real value chain within that. And the potential upside of value to recycled commodity values through gain share agreements. And again, we're in discussions with councils about this, where if the cost of the product that we're supplying and the value of the recyclables that you're selling, if we can increase that value to the council by giving you a cheaper product, or in fact paying more for recyclables, we actually do a gain share on the difference in price. So create real partnership around that. I think I've got about 2 minutes, so I'll fly. Okay, so what do we offer? A guarantee rate for recycled plastics, a guarantee to accept and manufacture the products that we say that we'll take, auditability, so in actual fact, audit trails on everything we do, and we have several corporates that actually do that, do a full audit trail on their products that come to us, controls on the commodity chain and the outcomes of the products that are there, and the opportunity for gain share. And the rest is really just on the range of products and bits and pieces, which I'm sure you can see, and I don't want to take up any more of the 10 minutes, but yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Elder. Appreciate that introduction and all the information you've shared. We do have a couple questions. Firstly, we'll take a question online from Councillor Beattie.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My question was going to be around the 1 to 7 plastics, and the ones that you can't take at the moment, and thank you for your presentation, it's very interesting. Do you think that the ones that you can't take at the moment, how long away will you be from being able to accept them?
Yeah, great question. As I say, we actually started off with only being able to take 2s, HDP, and as you can see from the slide that's up there, if you can in fact see that, it's 2s, 4s, 5s, 6s and 7s that we can take. We've added in things like face masks because it was a problem for New Zealand as a percentage. And what we do as a company is really quite simple, and that is we only operate 5 days a week in our manufacturing, 20 hours a day, and weekends are actually spent on R&D. So this is a constant process for us, because part of what Jerem wanted in the business when he started it, and we've kept this in the culture of the business and it will remain, is that this isn't just about making posts or other items. It's actually about fixing environmental issues that are around in New Zealand at the moment. We get no benefit from putting face masks into our product, but we saw it as an issue and we decided that we'd try and solve it. So we spent 3 months of our R&D project on being able to do that, bought a whole lot of more equipment to be able to do it, and then we're able to do that. We're doing exactly the same thing with PET at the moment in one, and not that there's not a market for clear PET. In fact, in New Zealand, we have a fantastic business, Flight Plastic, that handles that, but coloured PET is a major issue. About 2 months ago, we thought we'd solved the problem, and then we had another little issue come up in our R&D, so we're still doing R&D, but we intend to have that the solution for ones within the next month, and then we'll go on to anything else that is a problem at that time.
Okay, thank you.
The Mayor.
Thanks, Dave. Good to see you again, and thanks for your presentation. Really interesting. So essentially from councils, you're after feedstock, aren't you? You've got to have plastics to manufacture this.
Yeah, it's the answer is yes, but a little bit more than that really. It's about acceptability. We would like councils, as some councils have already done and are doing, to kind of accept that the circular economy that we bring into a region is actually important for the region as well. And the concept that I explained with the Christchurch International Airport and their solar farm, that's really what we're looking for. Like, we aren't short of product. We love to get consistent feedstock. And we're doing things like, at the moment, bale wrap or silage wrap is a major issue in New Zealand. So the plant we're bringing into the Manawatu will be able to handle that product. Now, there's about 7,800 tonne a year of that product available in New Zealand that isn't collected. We can handle about 4,000 tonne of that. So yes, we'd like the product. We appreciate the work that companies like Aotea do and work very closely with them, and so we would never want to take away the opportunity for their business either. But things that are difficult, we'd like to solve. But the reality is our business makes money out of manufacturing. So if we can manufacturing and work with council in the wider community to actually deliver products back into the community, that's really the answer for us.
Yeah, so those hard plastics,
yes,
like sevens, and I think we're just dumping them in the landfill at the moment. You can take those?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yep.
What about soft plastics, you know, like plastic bags?
So I talked a little bit about what the company has as its ethos, and I'll quickly give this story. I'm very conscious of time. 2 years ago, the Soft Plastics Council in New Zealand cancelled its scheme around dropping soft plastics off at supermarkets and the like, and that was because they were sending it overseas to a company called RedCycle, and nothing wrong with that company, very good company. But all of a sudden the laws changed and they weren't able to do it, the international laws. Literally, we were sitting around talking on a Sunday night and heard the news, and Jerem went, we have to find a way to use it. And so we use it. So soft plastic is now 35% of our input material. It used to be 0. So all soft plastics are acceptable for us, with the exception of PVCs and PVDCs.
And they're collected, I saw Dunedin had stopped using it, but then they went to the supermarkets and they've got some collection points outside supermarkets?
Yep, correct. So when we plan our new plants that are coming up, we've got one going to the South Island and one to the Lower North Island, we do that and we advise the Soft Plastics Council, and they actually start a project to expand their project to those parts of New Zealand, because it's the transport cost and logistics that make that unreasonable otherwise. Yep.
Good. Thanks, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Elder. Just a couple questions from me. The first, I think, builds on where the Mayor was in terms of really understanding kind of what your feedstock picture looks like so far in the Lower North Island. I'm not asking for commercially sensitive information, but just trying to get a sense of
Happy to share.
where you're at and where you'd like to be at in that space.
Sure, yep, yeah, very happy to share. So we already have existing commercial relationships with people like Fonterra Group and bits and pieces, and a lot of their plastics are actually sent from like Longburn and Makamaka Road and bits and pieces to our Waiuku facility. We'll obviously divert that product across to us. We have significant amount of product available to us out of the Hawke's Bay that we haven't taken because of the distance, and also we're conscious of our environmental footprint as well, so we haven't required it. We'll bring that over, and that's part of the reason for coming to the Manawatu was the distribution hub and the ability to do backloads and bits and pieces through that area. And the fact that we're moving into silage and bale wraps and bits and pieces will make a significant difference to our feedstock. So we're okay. It's really just about that knowing that we get a continuance of product coming in. We also take from the Yoplait plant here in Palmerston North through Goodman Fielder and bits and pieces like that as well. So, yep.
Thank you. We have a question from the Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for your presentation. I've got a question around the trial that's underway around the partnering with New Zealand Post for people to be able to courier there.
Yep, I'll say first of all, that's the New Zealand Soft Plastics and Courier Post. We just happen to be the end outlet for it, but we're very happy to take that question.
Yep, so I was aware you were on the receiving end rather than it being your trial specifically, but I wondered if with the trial, if there was any monitoring planning on being done around where the soft plastics were coming in from, whether there was an opportunity to look at trends, for example, if there was a large amount coming from the Manawatu, and how long the trial was going for. Those were my two questions.
Okay, so the trial is going to have a level of permanence, and one of the reasons why it's a trial is because we're still building plants in the South Island and the Lower North Island. So pretty much an answer to your question. As to geographically how far the rollout will go and the trial will continue to become ongoing is going to be based on exactly that information. So one of the reasons for it is that their data is being collected by New Zealand Post, so every single thing that's done, we'll have a full awareness, and so will the Soft Plastics Council of exactly what's happening, and that information will be fed to us about a feedstock coming through. Does that answer your question?
Yep, that does. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Elder. There's no further questions. You may want to just take a seat in the gallery in case there's any comments from elected members around the presentation, but you're out of the hot seat at this point. Thank you again.
Thank you very much.
Moving to the recommendation, we have that the committee resolves that the presentation be received for information. I'll look to move that, seconded by the Deputy Mayor, and open it up for any comments. The Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Look, and I want to thank Dave and the Future Post people for the presentation. Really interesting. I've had a little bit of insight to it, mainly through the New Zealand Rural Games, where they had some posts. They were using some of the posts for some of the competitions there, and just managed to strike up a conversation with people that were there and was most interested, mainly around some of the feedstock that we're currently dumping. And, you know, when you think about what we're putting into Bonnie Glen, it's, this is quite attractive. Of course, we are trying to educate people not to use some of those plastics, but reality is that'll be a decade-long conversation, I'm sure. It's around the collection of it, and looking to our officers behind me, it's something that I think our officers should be looking at, maybe in consultation with the Soft Packaging Council around the bags. I don't think it's something for us to collect, but we could promote and communicate that they could be going to different places if and when that comes to us, and I'm absolutely sure it will. And then what are we doing with some of those harder plastics that we all have, and sometimes we just store in the garage or somewhere else, or just tip in the bin. It's how we could collect those or put those to a collection point. I'm not really saying council does that, but absolutely we should be thinking innovatively how they could be collected and recycled. And of course our own feedstock, it just gives our own plastic recycling just gives another opportunity for another possible place that it could be used. But it sounds like Future Post have got well and truly a lot in the pipeline. So just thank you for the presentation, and I hope it just profiles what is a really important issue for us, and some opportunities for council, and hopefully the officers will take all that on board. Thank you.
Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to acknowledge the presentation. It was really great to have that coming into the council chamber. I guess I really like the opportunities that Future Post present, not necessarily on the collection side with council, but the manufacturing side and having a closed loop on being able to receive product back at the end of life. I think that's not always something that we see coming from manufacturers across the globe, and particularly the R&D focus as well. You know, having a business in the community that is really set on actually solving problems, even in a long-term approach, is going to provide solutions to the climate issues that we're facing. And so, I just want to acknowledge the work that Future Post are doing. I think as a business, they certainly deserve any level of profiling that they can get. Thank you for arranging the presentation. It's been really great to have come in.
Finally, to comment and add my appreciation first, Mr. Elder, for coming in and sharing with us where Future Post is at and going. Welcome to the Manawatu, and very much looking forward to your business being part of the community here. The innovation focus is absolutely fantastic, and it's really, I think as the Deputy Mayor said, there's innovation in the business model side as well as innovation in the physical process side that's exciting to see, and that business ethos fits very, very well with our future outlook. You know, like the Mayor, I'd like us to be looking as a community and as a council to see what can be done to contribute to the feedstock side of that. I've sat through many reports on waste minimization, as we all have, and heard about price volatility. We've heard about markets dropping out. We've had to drop out of some of the game, so seeing some options finally flowing back the other way is incredibly heartening, and really, really, look forward to seeing what we as a council can do to be part of this story as well. One further comment from Mr. Tarangi.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just too find the presentation really exciting. Growing up on a dairy farm and being aware of the bale wrap and silage wrap that often just lies around on farms, I find that's really exciting that it can be put to good use, and so I salute the initiative that you've taken, and welcome its appearance in the Manawatu. Yeah.
There's no further speakers in the queue, so we will move to call for the vote. All those in favor? That's unanimous. Thank you. Oh, and sorry, one abstention from Councillor Hopeta, and welcome. Committee, what we will do at this stage is actually take an early adjournment until 25 past. The purpose of that is in part so that you can get a coffee, but also so that we can reset the online technology. The next presentation is streaming, and we would like it to be able to stream. So we'll see you at 25 past.